in the land of fitness and nutrition for a little while, and we're going to talk about all things personal finance. My guest today is Garrett Gunderson. He is the founder of Wealth Factory and a best-selling author and all-around financial genius. And something quick I want to touch on that was great in Budgeting Sucks, because you ran some numbers there about getting out of debt and everything, but this seems like really low-hanging fruit, and it goes to the concept of one of your sacred cows, which is 401ks. So I've seen this happen with clients where I am no Garrett Gunderson, and I'm like, hey, have you ever looked at it like this? And they're just like, oh my God, no. But let's say you have someone, and this is very easy to see happen in America, happens all the time. But you said this in Budgeting Sucks. You said, when you have loans and investments, you may be earning less interest from your investments than you're paying on your loans. So for listeners, it's easy to imagine somebody who might have $50,000 in a 401k. Let's say it's returning 3 to 6%. And then they might have $50,000 in credit card debt that they're paying 16 to 24% APR. And the answer is staring them in the face in this sacred cow of the 401k that they refuse to touch. So am I right about that? Do I have that correct?
I mean, and yet they just don't think about it. They just go, yeah, well, I just fund my 401k.
You can't touch that. That's accumulation.
Like, come on, man, you're losing money with every deposit you make in there. There's people with 17%, 22% credit cards.
Yeah.
And they're still funding their 401k.
Right.
Your 401k is not making that.
Not even close. One of the things
that'll blow people's minds, I mean, if I pulled up software, is like a lot of people are like, yeah, but I'm getting matched. That's free money. I'm like, well, is it free money? Because there's strings attached. You usually have to work a place for a certain amount of time. It's not always immediately vested. 2, it's depending upon the underlying returns and you don't have losses on the market once the money goes in. 3, it's not fueling it at 100% because they're only matching new dollars going in, not the existing funds that are already in there. So I did a lot of analysis on that back in the Killing Sacred Cows days, and it's not as good as people think. So,
no.
Yeah.
It's not even close, man. And that's your work sent me down such a rabbit hole where it's like I was listening to you. I believe we have a mutual friend in Ryan Daniel Moran. I was listening to a lot of his stuff.
I've spoken at capitalism.com. And
that's killer, man. And he actually sent me the book Heads I Win, Tails You Lose by Patrick Donahoe.
He's a great guy. He lives close to here. I actually made him throw up when he came and worked out with me.
So you're the king badass of the financial world.
Well, the problem is, he did CrossFit before I ever did, but I have an air assault bike, and if you get 30 calories in 60 seconds, you get a T-shirt for my gym, and he did do it, and then he went and threw up afterwards. So.
That's awesome. But yeah, no, man, I loved his book, and then I read another one that was like, it wasn't as good. Like your books were way more entertaining. Patrick's book was great, but there's a book called The Bank on Yourself program. I'm sure you're familiar with.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was really cool too, and it just kind of blew my mind. But I got into this concept of cash flow banking, which I'm now involved in and super thrilled. I pulled the trigger with Dale Clark and Mass Mutual. And like, dude, if I had known about this in my 20s when I was like killing it in the music industry, I'd probably have 10 of these things. But here's a random thing I want to talk about. This is very personal for me. And I know that you're going to be like, oh, okay, I totally get it. In the world of nutrition, people will change this like high fat, low carb diet, and their entire family tells them that they're going to die of a heart attack. And this is terrible for them. It's these strongly held false beliefs again. So I was recently in Mexico with my dad and my brother. Like 2 days before, I had signed the paperwork for Mass Mutual at Dale. I'm like all excited. Didn't talk about it. Didn't tell anybody about it. Nothing. Now, randomly in Mexico, we're talking business and finance. And my brother says these words. He goes, yeah, man, that's like someone telling you to buy a whole life insurance policy, which is the worst financial advice you could ever give someone. Now, the kicker is my brother has 2 degrees. He has a degree in finance and economics, and he's a lawyer. And he's basically a genius, right? And so he says this, and now my newly held belief, I'm like, oh no, like did I do something terrible here? But it's like you said, he was taught what he was taught in school. It doesn't make it right. But where does this stigma come from for cash flow banking?
Well, first off, 90% of the policies are designed terribly with companies that aren't really suited for it. So it might be 4 or 5 years before you see cash.
Right.
So because if they're designed with commission in mind versus really what's best for you, then that's part of the problem. So they deserve that rap because like in my book, What Would the Rockefellers Do? I say, well, Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman rail against cash value insurance.
Yes.
And I go, well, here's where they're right. When it's designed this way, it does take forever and it's going to underperform. here's where they're wrong. They're only looking at expense. They think of it as an expense, and they want to lower expenses to lower the amount of money required in the budget. So they're not looking at it from the benefit standpoint.
Sure.
So it really, it really is super popular with the highly affluent from an estate planning standpoint. It's especially with private placement life insurance. But when we look at whole life, when I first learned about it, someone said it's a hole you throw your money into. Showed me some of the old antiquated policies and the way they were designed. And I'm like, yeah, these are no good. But when they're designed properly, then we treat it like a bank treats their reserves. A bank puts a portion of their reserves into cash value insurance because it has a higher return than their reserve rate. It has more protection. It has more tax benefit. So it's simply because so many people have not designed it properly that it gets that kind of bad rap that it deserved.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting. So I'm a big believer in the universe and stuff. I kind of get the feeling you are too. But I had read Killing Sacred Cows was first for me. Then What Would the Rockefellers Do? And then I had to wait till Budgeting Sucks was released to read another one. But like after What Would the Rockefellers Do, I would go down this rabbit hole and I end up finding, Ryan sends me Heads I Win, Tails You Lose. I read Emily's book, The Bank on Yourself program. Then I'm listening to Ryan's podcast. All these people like you, Dale Clark, Ryan, Patrick, Emily, the author of The Bank on Yourself. I think you said her name's Emily. But like I heard all these people say the same thing of like, oh yes, the core foundation of my finances is overfunded whole life insurance. And I'm like, whoa, how have I never heard of this thing prior to now and this crazy stigma thing? So I mean, I'm thrilled to have it now. I don't know if you want to touch on, I know that's like a big lengthy topic, but if you want to hit just bullet points of cash flow banking, it's pretty unbelievable. I'm sold on it.